Radio Dad here. Looking at a pretty interesting relic. This is a Echophone Commercial. It's a neat little radio. I've got all the knobs. I just pulled them off so I could start dismantling this thing. Then I realized I probably wanted to make a video on it because it's you know, kind of a neat radio, and I'm looking forward to kind of putting it back together. Now this one obviously has some has pretty bad damage here to this display cover, and I'm not sure I can do much with this thing. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and take a piece of Lexan or something and warm it in the oven and put some weight on it and see if I can't make a piece that looks sort of like this. Only I won't be able to do probably quite this fancy of an edge, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to pull it off or not, but that's what I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to make my own just by molding some Lexan in the oven. Well, I'll let you know how that goes. But everything else is kind of pretty straightforward here. So we got a phone speaker, we've got a standby or on, so you can, you know, put it in standby, off, on. So I'm assuming when it's on, the radio receiver's on, and when it's off, that the radio receiver is the two filaments are on, but the radio is not. But we'll double check that. You got a band switch, you got 3 bands, so you got anything from 0.5 megahertz or 0.55 megahertz all the way up to 30 megahertz on this unit, so that's cool. One thing that's kind of cool on this is your main tuning is the dial that goes like a windshield wiper. It's a wiper. And then your band spread tuning, right, which is kind of think of it like your fine tuning. It goes back and forth. So I think that's I just think that's kind of cool that they have 2 different types of movements on this unit. Sometimes there are 2 different dials completely, you know, radios and stuff. A lot of Hallicrafters are that way. This one has, you know, 2 different totally movements. I like that. That's cool. Here's your BFO for voice code. You switch between AM and CW. And of course we got a regular off-on volume knob. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple radio. Phones and speakers. On the back we have this one. This one does not have the back panel. Okay, it has the bottom plate and the top with a speaker in it. Let me show you that real quick. There's nothing to it, but here's the top. Okay, it's got a little bit of something happening there with the speaker. I'm gonna clear coat all this stuff, so I'm gonna take it and clean it up. You know, just clean it. It's got kind of a crinkle paint, so I don't want to damage that, but I will clean it up, try to get some of the rust off, and then clear coat it so that it won't get any more rusty. And yeah, so that's that guy. This is the bottom plate with the feet. Okay, I've already removed that. It's pretty dirty on that. Nothing that a little soap and water won't take care of. And then we have the back of the radio. We've got our standard A1, A2 ground for the antenna hookups. If you any of these type of AA5 radios, All American 5 radios, actually this is not All American 5. It's got 6 tubes, but kind of an AA6 type situation, I guess. You know, the A1, if you got a long wire antenna, you hook it A1 together and you ground between A2 and ground. If you're running a loop antenna, then you disconnect A2 from ground and hook up your loop to A1, A2. Anyway, it's that simple. And then this is your headphones here. Usually these require kind of a high impedance headphone because they're before the final audio frequency amplifier. Now I don't know on this one, might be different, but on some of these radios, if you don't have a high impedance set of headphones, if you have just an 8 ohm, 8 ohm headphone or something similar to a speaker, a modern speaker, it'll pull your signal down. You won't hear anything. But if you have a high impedance set of headphones, then these will work. But it has this really strange connector. It's kind of hard to use because we don't really have many phones around like that anymore. And but anyway, that's what that is. And then some kind of a tuning adjustment here. Again, I don't even know what that is yet. And then the power cord, which I just cut off, is pretty rotten, but I always cut them off because no way I'm turning this sucker on until it's all made safe. And another thing you can see here, if you look down in here, right? If you look down between here, there's a rubber grommet separating this deck from the outside chassis, which I know already that means that this chassis is probably got the potential to be a live chassis, which basically means that they used non-polarized cords on these things, and depending on how they were turned around, that it could be, your chassis could be hot. If your cord is flipped, one way, and the other way, it may be neutral. But so what we use is polarized cords, and do a little mod in here to make absolutely sure that our hot is what's being turned off by the power volume potentiometer, and just make sure that that this thing can only be neutral, and then we don't have to really worry so much about the chassis ever becoming hot or becoming dangerous. So that's something you should always do on these top radios. And remember that there's high voltages in here, even higher than 120. Obviously, they're usually about 350 volts or something coming out of the power supply. But these chassis can become a real shock hazard and even electrocution hazard, right? So, so please always proceed with caution and never power these things up as you find them, because they are always a fire hazard, shock hazard, and every other kind of hazard. These are old radios. So let's look underneath it and we'll see what we're talking about. Okay, underneath this guy, we see tons of this is our old paper electrolytics. We got a lot of waxies. We got these spragues. This is a neat looking old sprague. I kind of like the old capacitors that have, this neat wrapping on them. That's just kind of a fun thing. That's like, if you can collect a few of them and put them in a glass box or something and look at them, they're just kind of cool. But these black ones aren't nearly as cool. But anyway, all of that stuff's got to be replaced. Every one of those capacitors have to be replaced, right? All the black ones, this one, the waxies, and undoubtedly they've replaced the waxies before with these black sprays, but we're going to replace all of them again with a more modern one. So this thing's been serviced at some point, but it's been a long time. And another thing, these things, there's a lot of dog bone resistors here. These things are notorious for probably being out of tolerance, but I'm going to measure them. I'm not just going to replace them because they're dog bones. I like vintage stuff, and if the component's still within tolerance, within plus or minus 5-10%, I'm probably going to leave them because number one, they're not visibly, they don't look horrible. They aren't corroded or paint all falling off or something. I like the way they look. It's a vintage radio, hey, if it's still got the right resistance, I don't care what kind of resistor it is. All right, if it's still got the right resistance after 70 years or whatever, I'm leaving it in there. I'm not going to replace it just because it's a dog bone, but I will definitely replace it if it's not the right values. And then you got all your RF and IF tuning, trimmer caps and whatnot. Yep, that's where we'll be doing the alignments. I don't know if you can see this in here. It's funny, is like underneath here, you can tell where somebody handprint a long time ago. Their fingerprints was pushing against this, and the oils of their hand literally almost left their fingerprints in there, the thumbprints. That's really neat. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it literally, their thumbprints is etched into the radio. It's kind of cool. You can figure out who that was, probably. Maybe. On top, let's see what kind of shape this thing is in. I haven't even looked at a schematic on this thing or nothing. But this is top-down audio transformer. One thing you didn't see, right? If you follow that power cord on the bottom here, right? Here's the power cord coming in, right? It pretty much runs right to one of your pins of your rectifier, right here, probably an unused pin, and then it goes over to the it's going to undoubtedly go to the power on-off switch and then come back, but and then here's your neutral going to that, but it's going to go right into your rectifier tube. So no isolation transformer whatsoever, right? So the only transformer in this radio, similar to many of these from the 50s, is this audio transformer, and hopefully that's good. But dial cords are all there. The tuning works. Here's your indicator lamp. Okay, you got one, and then you got the complement of tubes here. These actually have, if I pull the tubes out, all the tube sockets are labeled. Get that where you can see. There we go, sorry about that. Yes, 12SQ7, okay. Haven't looked to see, yeah, 12SQ7. I'll test all these tubes and make sure they're all good. I can go ahead and take them out. 12J5, okay. Yep. 35L6GT. It's probably an audio amplifier. Or excuse me, that is your, yeah, then this is the, yeah. No. 35L GT, yeah. Audio amplifier, and then this is your rectifier tube here. Okay. 35Z5. 35Z5 GT. There you go. So rectifier, audio amplifier, this will be your detector. And 12SQ7 here. What's this one? This is your second IF. 12SK7. It's going to be another IF amplifier. And then this is probably your RF amplifier. This one's curious. It's a metal, it's got a metal tab on the top, but it's a metal can. Yeah. This 12KB, 12K8, I'm sorry. 12K8. Well, that's pretty neat, huh? Yeah. That one's got this metal tab on the top. There you go. But it's a metal case. So that's all of our tubes here. 4, 5, 6, yeah, okay. Pretty standard. Rectifier, audio amplifier, detector, possibly first audio amp, and then we got our first and second IF stages and our RF amplifier. So that's pretty standard stuff. So I'm going to dismantle this thing. Now here's something that, if you don't know anything about these radios, which I didn't, But when I go to start taking it apart, because I want to get this case down to the bare metal, I'm not gonna sand the metal case. I'm just gonna do, again, a good cleaning job on the case, get all the funky brown off from it. Just open water. You can be real careful on all the decals. I don't want to re-decal anything. I want it original, and then I'll clear coat it. But you know, this is a problem. I want to get it to where I've just got the metal case here to work with, so I can re-clear coat it and all this stuff. And I want to take the deck out of here, and the deck I want to clean up. Well, usually there's a few, you know, pull the knobs off and you pull out a few of these fasteners for your variable switches and stuff and slide the chassis right out, right? Well, this unit, not so easy. It has rivets on all of the switches. They're literally riveted into place. So I guess those switches are impossible to ever go bad. I guess that was their point. They are just two position, pretty simple switches, but I mean, golly, man. If you got to replace one, you got to drill out the rivets and all that stuff. So a little disappointed in that. If I'm looking at it, get it where you can kind of see here. There we go. So what I have to do is I'll have to desolder these switches, desolder the wires to these switches. Now, not these variables. These guys can come out. I can remove the front and they'll pop out. The mode switch and everything, band switch. But you know, these three two position switches, I'll have to desolder the wires off them to pull them out. So it's you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wires. I'll mark them and photograph them and take them out. But I was a little disappointed that all of that wasn't fairly easy to pull out. Usually they make that stuff into the front of a, you know, sheet metal. It's kind of like you got the sheet metal on the back here. You know, usually there's a piece across the front to most chassis, and these switches are all mounted in that, and then it just slides into your main chassis. But for whatever reason, they decided to front panel mount every bit of this stuff and rivet the switches. And they didn't really want anybody taking this thing out. Maybe it's got to do with the hot chassis and the complexity of it being, you know, and you can really see in here how the grommets have deteriorated, right? This is another reason why I say these things can be lethal. I mean, look at that one. It doesn't even have any rubber left on this side. I can just see metal. So, you know, undoubtedly this thing could be contacting this chassis and the outer case and have 120 on it. I wouldn't. The same over here. This guy over here doesn't have any rubber left at all, isolating him from the this little sleeve that the screw's attached to. You know, there's supposed to be a piece of rubber in between. It's all gone, but we'll make it safe. We won't need to isolate it. We'll polarize the plug and install a fuse, do the modification to get rid of the hot chassis, and make sure that our switch breaks the circuit for the hot. So it'll be safe when we put it back together. But so my next step is to really get this thing completely dismantled, and then I'll clean the case up and replace all these guys, and we'll see what we got. So this is just the first of the series here. Okay, this is Radio Dad. Thanks for watching.